The sound of laughter echoed across the rooftop helipad, sharp and cutting, as if it were slicing through the cold evening air. Nathan Carter stood still, gripping his mop handle tightly, his worn-out uniform fluttering slightly in the wind. The helicopter blades were silent, but the tension around him roared louder than any engine ever could. Across from him, Victoria Hale, young, powerful, and the ruthless CEO of Hale Dynamics, smirked with a confidence that bordered on cruelty. Her voice rang out, mocking and amused, as she tossed the challenge like a joke into the air. "Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you." The executives behind her burst into laughter, their polished shoes and tailored suits glimmering under the fading sun, while Nathan remained quiet, his eyes unreadable, carrying a past no one there could imagine. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and hidden strength, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that we never truly know someone's worth until the truth rises. Nathan had worked in that building for 3 years, invisible to most people. Every morning before sunrise, he cleaned the marble floors that reflected the empire Victoria had built. Every night, he emptied trash bins filled with papers worth more than his yearly salary. People passed him without a glance, their conversations filled with profits and power, never noticing the quiet man who made sure their world stayed spotless. To them, he was just a janitor. To Victoria, he was nothing more than a symbol of everything beneath her. She had built her success on discipline, control, and a ruthless belief that people were exactly what they appeared to be, no more, no less. But Nathan's life had never been simple. Years ago, he had stood in a very different place, wearing a uniform of a different kind. He had been a decorated pilot in the U.S. Army, flying missions that demanded courage most people couldn't comprehend. He had faced storms, enemy fire, and moments where a single decision meant life or death. But after a tragic accident during a rescue mission, one that cost him not just his career but also his closest friend, Nathan walked away from that life. The guilt followed him like a shadow, heavy and unrelenting. He chose silence, anonymity, and a job where no one would ask questions. Being invisible was easier than being reminded of who he used to be. Victoria, however, saw none of that. To her, Nathan was just the janitor who happened to be standing nearby when she decided to entertain her colleagues. The rooftop gathering had been meant to celebrate a new contract, a milestone for her company. The helicopter was part of the display, a symbol of success and power. And in her world, everything, and everyone, was a tool for amusement if it served her ego. When she threw out the challenge, she didn't expect an answer. She expected laughter, which she got. What she didn't expect was silence from Nathan, not fear, not anger, just a quiet, steady silence. The wind picked up, brushing against Nathan's face as he slowly set the mop aside. For a brief moment, his gaze lifted to the helicopter. Memories surged back, uninvited but impossible to ignore. The hum of rotors, the vibration beneath his hands, the responsibility of lives depending on him, it all returned in a single breath. His chest tightened, not with fear, but with something deeper, something unresolved. The rooftop fell unusually quiet as he took a step forward. The laughter faded, replaced by confusion. No one expected him to move, let alone approach the aircraft. Victoria raised an eyebrow, amused at first, thinking he was playing along with the joke. But as Nathan climbed into the cockpit with calm precision, her smile faltered. There was something different in his movements, not hesitation, not clumsiness, but familiarity. The kind that couldn't be faked. Her colleagues exchanged uncertain glances as the moment shifted from entertainment to something else entirely. Something real. Nathan's hands rested on the controls, and for a second, his eyes closed. He wasn't on a rooftop anymore. He was back in the sky, back in the storm, back in the moment that had changed everything. The weight of his past pressed down on him, but this time, he didn't turn away from it. Slowly, he opened his eyes and began the start-up sequence with practiced ease. The helicopter came to life, the blades spinning, the engine roaring to full power. Gasps replaced laughter as the machine lifted smoothly off the ground, steady and controlled. From below, Victoria watched in stunned silence. Her heartbeat quickened, not from fear, but from the realization that she had misjudged him completely. The janitor she had mocked was now hovering above her, commanding the sky with effortless skill. The power dynamic she had always relied on suddenly shattered. In that moment, titles, wealth, and status meant nothing. All that mattered was truth, and she had been blind to it. Nathan circled the building once before bringing the helicopter down with precision, landing it as gently as if it were resting on air. When the engine shut off, the silence that followed felt heavier than any noise. He stepped out, his expression calm, but his eyes carried the weight of years. No pride, no need for validation, just quiet dignity. Victoria stood frozen, her confidence stripped away. For the first time in her life, she didn't have control over the situation. She didn't have a clever remark or a way to turn the moment back in her favor. All she had was the truth staring back at her. Nathan didn't say a word. He simply walked past her, picking up his mop as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But something had changed, irreversibly. In the days that followed, Victoria couldn't shake the image of that moment. It haunted her in ways she didn't understand. She began to notice things she had ignored before, the exhaustion in her employees' faces, the quiet sacrifices people made behind the scenes, the humanity she had overlooked in her relentless pursuit of success. And most of all, she thought about Nathan. About how easily she had reduced him to a label, never questioning what lay beneath. Eventually, she found him in the same place he always was, cleaning the floors early in the morning. But this time, she approached him differently. There was no arrogance in her posture, no mockery in her tone. Just humility. She didn't ask about the helicopter. She didn't demand an explanation. She simply acknowledged him, not as a janitor, but as a person. Nathan, in turn, didn't reveal everything. Some wounds take time, and some stories are too heavy to share all at once. But for the first time in years, he allowed someone to see a glimpse of who he really was. Not the past he ran from, but the strength he carried because of it. And slowly, something unexpected began to grow between them, not romance born from a reckless challenge, but respect born from truth. Victoria learned that leadership wasn't about power, but understanding. Nathan learned that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the past, but finding peace with it. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and comment. Your support helps keep stories like this alive, stories that remind us of the humanity we often overlook. And before the ending, here's a special request: comment below with the words, "Everyone has a story," if you believe that no one should be judged by appearances alone. In the end, the rooftop where it all began became a symbol, not of arrogance, but of transformation. Victoria never joked about that challenge again, not because she lost, but because she understood. And Nathan, the man who once chose to disappear, finally began to step back into the light, not for recognition, but for himself. Because sometimes, the greatest secrets aren't meant to impress the world, they're meant to remind it that even the quietest souls carry the loudest truths.